Welcome to my YouTube channel. Hit the like button, share your thoughts, subscribe, and tap the bell icon. The traffic stop that changed everything. The flashing lights behind her weren't new. Maya kept her hands at 10 and 2. Just like her father taught her when she was 16 and terrified during her first solo drive. He drilled it into her. Keep your hands visible. Don't argue. Don't make sudden moves. That was 20 years ago. And yet, here she was. Different city, different car, same fear. The sirens had died down, but the patrol car's lights strobed into her rearview mirror. She blinked against the blur, her breath steady but shallow. She wasn't speeding. The car was hers. Insurance, registration, flawless. So why was she being pulled over? The officer's door creaked open. 1, 2, 3. Boots hit the pavement with slow, deliberate weight. She didn't need to turn around to know he was walking like he owned the road. She'd felt that kind of presence before, aggressive, unchecked. The kind of man who didn't ask questions. He made assumptions and forced answers. A sharp rap on her window. 2 knuckles. No words. She pressed the button, lowering the window slowly. License. And registration, not even a greeting. She turned her head and looked up. Mid-40s, white hard eyes. His jaw twitched as he stared at her, like she'd spat on his shoes. "Good afternoon," she said politely, passing her documents with steady hands. He barely looked at her. "Where are you headed?" "To a meeting downtown." "Meeting with who?" Her eyes flicked to his nameplate. "R. Blaine." "Is that relevant to the stop?" she asked, her voice calm. He scoffed. "A little defensive, aren't we?" "I'm just asking if I'm being detained." Blaine squinted at her. "Car like this doesn't exactly fit in around here." "You're sure it's yours?" There it was. The barb dot. She smiled. But it wasn't a kind smile. It was a warning. "I suggest you run my name again." Carefully. Blaine's face tightened. He yanked her license and registration out of her hand and stomped back to his car. Maya exhaled. Slowly. This was the 3rd time in 2 weeks. 3rd officer. 3rd assumption. But this time would be different. She glanced at her phone on the passenger seat. The screen was recording. Inside the cruiser, Blaine typed her information into the system, muttering under his breath. Maya, a Rhodes, clean, no outstanding warrants. Car registered under her name. Local address, quiet neighborhood, nothing suspicious still. He didn't like it. Didn't like her tone. Didn't like her calm. Didn't like how she knew something. Blaine leaned back in his seat. Something about her rubbed him the wrong way. Maybe he'd dig deeper later. Check if she had anything sealed. A restraining order. A DUI. Something. He walked back to her window, documents in hand. "You're free to go," he said gruffly. Maya rolled the window down farther. "Thank you, Officer Blaine." He turned to walk away, but her next words stopped him cold. "I'll be seeing you again," she said softly. "But next time, it'll be under very different circumstances." He turned. "Excuse me." Her smile returned. This time, there was a razor behind it. "Have a good day, officer." She pulled away slowly, leaving him fuming in the street. 3 days later, downtown precinct. Internal Affairs Division Officer Blaine sat at the cold steel table, arms crossed, eyes darting to the door. "Why the hell am I here?" he muttered to no one. No one had answered his questions. They just said Internal Affairs needed a statement. No context, no hint. The door opened. He looked up and everything inside him locked up. Maya Rhodes walked in, confident, composed. She wasn't in jeans now. She wore a tailored navy suit, heels, a badge clipped to her hip. She set a thick folder on the table. His name printed on the tab. Blaine R. Complaint History and Conduct Review. "What is this?" he asked, blinking. She sat across from him, lacing her fingers calmly. "I'm Maya Rhodes, lead investigator, Internal Affairs." "You," he spat. "This is some kind of joke." "Not at all." Her tone was ice, controlled, sharp. "We've been watching your stops, Officer Blaine. This folder contains over a dozen civilian complaints, patterns of racial profiling, use of excessive language, and now me." Blaine leaned forward, red creeping up his neck. "You set me up." "I gave you a chance," she replied. "You failed." He looked like he wanted to throw the table. Maya stood. "This is just the beginning. You'll be hearing from the review board within the week." She turned to leave. Before she opened the door, she paused and looked over her shoulder. "You asked me if the car was mine." He said nothing. She smiled. "I own that car. I earned every piece of it, just like I earned the right to sit across from you today and hold you accountable." Then she was gone. The file that could ruin him. The moment Maya walked out of the interrogation room, the air in the hallway felt colder. She didn't stop walking. Not when Blaine slammed his palm on the table behind her. Not when he cursed under his breath. She'd heard worse, much worse, but she allowed herself a small breath of satisfaction. That had only been the first folder in her office upstairs. She placed Blaine's file on her desk and locked it in the cabinet. Then she reached for the second file, the one with no label, the one she'd been building for 6 months, long before her own traffic stop. It was filled with things that hadn't made it into official reports. Handwritten letters from victims too afraid to speak. Body cam footage mysteriously missing. From precinct servers, 2 names circled in red ink. One of them, Blaine. The other name was still a mystery, but she was getting closer. Meanwhile, Officer Blaine sat in the empty room, stunned, not angry, not confused, terrified. He didn't recognize it at first. Fear wasn't something he allowed himself to feel, but it crept in now, quiet and vicious. He hadn't just been caught profiling some random driver. He'd been caught profiling her damn internal affairs lead investigator. His hands clenched, his knee bounced. He'd survived worse, right? He reached for his phone and dialed. The voice on the other end answered immediately. "I told you this would happen if you got sloppy." Blaine swallowed. A pause, then a low sigh. Her name, Maya Rhodes. Another pause. Then do not contact me again. This was your mess. If she digs deeper, your name won't be the only one exposed. The line went dead. Blaine stared at the screen. His contact was already wiping traces. That was the agreement. But Maya, she wasn't just doing her job. She was coming for him personally. He saw it in her eyes, and that meant only one thing. She knew something. Back in her office, Maya turned to the corkboard on her wall. Photos, notes, red string connecting faces, timelines, and events. In the center, Blaine's face, but surrounding him were others, victims, whistleblowers, and officers who had turned a blind eye. And in the far corner, one photograph, old, faded, a teenage boy, brown skin, wide eyes, lying still on the pavement. Maya stared at it for a long moment. Her younger brother Elijah, killed during a routine stop 8 years ago. The officer claimed he ran, that he reached for something, that he matched a suspect. There were no witnesses, no video, no justice. The case was closed in under 72 hours, but Maya never let it go. She joined the force 2 years later, moved through departments, passed every test, and clawed her way into internal affairs, not to police the innocent, to hunt the protected, the ones like Blaine, the ones who smiled at grieving families and buried the truth with paperwork and lies. Later that evening, Maya met with Officer Kendra Bell, one of the few officers she trusted. Kendra slid a flash drive across the diner table. "I shouldn't have this," she said, looking over her shoulder. "It's from an old cruiser, deleted from the precinct server, but someone backed it up on an external." Maya took it. Whose body cam? Kendra hesitated. Blaine's. From 7 months ago. Maya's heart thudded. "What happened?" Kendra looked down. "It shows him pulling over a young kid, 18, unarmed. The kid doesn't resist, doesn't run, but Blaine pushes him to the ground, calls for backup, says the kid was getting aggressive. He wasn't." Maya closed her eyes. Rage surged through her veins, but her voice stayed even. "What happened to the kid?" "Suspended license, nothing else. But after the arrest, he lost his scholarship, dropped out of college. It ruined his life." Maya nodded slowly. "I want his name." Kendra scribbled it on a napkin and slid it over. Maya stared at it. Another name, another story buried under silence. She looked up. "Thank you, Kendra." Kendra sighed. "Just be careful. You're not just poking the bear, you're kicking the whole damn den." Later that night, Maya inserted the flash drive into her encrypted laptop. The video began. Blaine's voice filled the room. "License and registration. Where you headed tonight?" The kid in the driver's seat, scared, polite, answered every question. Then Blaine stepped back. There was no threat, nothing alarming. But suddenly, Blaine yanked the door open, pulled the kid out, slammed him to the ground. "Stop resisting." The kid wasn't resisting. He was crying. Maya watched. Every second. Then paused, rewound, watched again, and in the corner of the frame, barely visible, Second car parked across the street, someone standing next to it, recording on a phone. She leaned forward, a witness, a silent witness. The next morning, Blaine found something in his locker, a photo, a printed still image from the video. Not of the kid, not of the car, but of him. A yellow sticky note was attached. How many more are there? His hands shook. Someone had been in the precinct. Someone was sending a message, and he knew exactly who. The witness who never spoke. The photograph burned in Blaine's palm like it had been dipped in acid. The grainy image of him standing over the terrified teen mid-arrest, face twisted in rage, was unmistakable. But it wasn't the photo itself that made his stomach lurch. It was the note. How many more are there? Blaine looked around the locker room. Empty, quiet, but it wasn't safe anymore. Not his station, not his uniform, not even the false power he'd clung to for years. Someone had breached his space, walked past the cameras, and left a message meant to rattle his soul. And it worked. He crumpled the note, shoved the photo in his pocket, and stormed out. He needed answers. Across town, Maya stood outside a quiet corner house in a faded neighborhood. She checked the address twice before knocking. The door creaked open. A woman in her 60s peeked out, cautious. Yes. Maya offered a kind smile. Ms. Everett, I'm not here to sell anything. I just need a moment of your time. The woman studied her for a beat, then slowly opened the door. I don't talk to police. I'm not here as a cop, Maya said. I'm here because of something you saw. The woman's lips tightened. I don't know what you're talking about. Maya pulled out the freeze frame from the bodycam video, the image of the woman, unknowingly caught in the background, holding up her phone across the street during Blaine's arrest of the young college student. I believe you recorded this. The woman's eyes widened, then flickered to the hallway. I didn't show that video to anyone. I deleted it, I swear. Maya stepped forward, voice gentle but firm. I think you didn't delete it. I think it's still on your phone, maybe buried, maybe forgotten, but it matters. That boy Marcus's life was torn apart by what happened. Ms. Everett clutched the edge of the door. My grandson, she whispered. He asked me to delete it. He said they'd come for him if I didn't. Maya's heart sank. So Marcus is your grandson? She nodded. He was always such a good boy, never in trouble. That night, he just broke down. Said no one would believe him, that if he spoke up, they'd ruin him even more. I believe him, Maya said. Ms. Everett hesitated, then turned and walked inside, waving Maya in. A few moments later, she returned holding an old phone. The video's still here. I never deleted it. I just didn't know what to do. Maya took the phone and watched. This angle was clear. No shaky footage, no glitching audio. The entire incident, from start to finish, the unnecessary aggression, the lies, the second officer showing up late and going along with Blaine's report without ever questioning him, and something else, something new. Blaine's voice near the end, low but audible. If you say a word about this, I'll bury your future. Before it starts, Maya's breath caught. He threatened Marcus, out loud. On camera, she looked up at Ms. Everett, her voice firm. This video, this changes everything. Back at the precinct, Blaine was in full panic mode. He sat in his cruiser, calling the one man he swore he'd never speak to again. When the line picked up, the voice on the other end was cold. I told you not to call again. She's going after the kid from 7 months ago, Blaine said. She found the woman who filmed it. If that video gets out. The line was silent for a long moment. Then the voice said, handle it, quietly. No violence, no trails. Click. Blaine's throat went dry. He wasn't a fixer. He was a bully in a badge. And Maya, she was smarter, more dangerous. She didn't yell. She calculated, and she was about to expose everything, unless he stopped her that night. Maya sat in her apartment, watching the video again and again. Each time she saw more. The lie, the abuse of power, the way Marcus flinched at every move, and something inside her cracked open. She remembered Elijah, his soft laugh, his dream to be a filmmaker. The night he died, and the fact that no one ever came forward, because of fear, because people like Blaine made truth feel dangerous. She wouldn't let that happen again. She uploaded the video to an encrypted drive, backed it up in 3 separate locations, and scheduled a private meeting with the Internal Affairs Board. This time, Blaine wouldn't walk away. But across town, Blaine wasn't sleeping. He was watching. From his parked car down the street, he saw Maya's lights on, He saw her silhouette through the blinds. She was too close, too prepared, and worst of all, too calm. She wasn't afraid of him. He pulled out a flash drive from his coat pocket. It was worn, scratched, but valuable. On it, audio files, conversations, secret recordings from officers who had dirt on each other, files Blaine had collected like insurance. He thought he'd never need them, but if he went down, he wouldn't go alone. The next morning, Maya's phone buzzed with a restricted number. She answered. The voice on the line was ragged, desperate. "You don't know what you're walking into, Maya." She froze. "Blaine, you think I'm the worst of it? You think this ends with me?" Maya's jaw clenched. "I know about Marcus. I have the video, and I'm bringing it to IA." A bitter laugh on the other end. "Then get ready, because you're not just exposing me. You're opening a door you won't be able to close." Click. Maya stared at her phone. The fear was back, but it wasn't for herself anymore. It was for the truth, and what it might cost. The friend she shouldn't have trusted Maya didn't sleep that night. She kept replaying Blaine's warning in her head. "You're opening a door you won't be able to close." He wasn't lying. The video was damning, yes, but that kind of threat didn't come from a desperate man alone. It came from someone protected, someone who had backup, and that meant this went deeper than just Blaine. Much deeper. At 6:04 a.m., Maya stood outside her precinct's internal affairs office, clutching the phone with the original video. She'd scheduled an emergency meeting with the board for 7 a.m., but something in her gut whispered, "Don't go in alone." She needed backup, someone she could trust. She grabbed her phone and texted the one person who'd stood by her during the roughest years on the force. "Kendra Bell, meet me at IA in 30 minutes. It's big. Bring no one." Kendra replied almost instantly. "On my way. You okay?" "Not yet," Maya replied. "But I will be." Inside the internal affairs conference room, the air was stale, cold, silent. 3 senior board members sat on the far side of the long mahogany table. Maya placed the phone and 2 printed stills from the video on the table in front of them. "I'm here today to file an official misconduct report against Officer Blaine Matthews," she began. "Based on this bodycam footage, an independent witness recording." She paused. "Let the room settle. One of our own is abusing his badge, and I have reason to believe he's not acting alone." The board members exchanged glances. The lead, chair, an older man named Director Abrams, adjusted his glasses. "Have you shared this evidence with anyone else?" "No, sir." Maya lead. "Only one officer knows I was coming here today." She watched his reaction carefully. Abrams nodded. "Good. We'll handle this discreetly." But something about his eyes felt off, calculated, as if he already knew. Maya's instinct screamed. Kendra arrived 10 minutes later, breathless. "I parked 2 blocks away," she said, closing the door behind her. "Did you show them the video?" Maya nodded. "They're reviewing it now." Kendra hesitated. Did you tell them about the other officer in the footage?" "Not yet," Maya said. "I was waiting until I could confirm who it was." Kendra's eyes flickered, just for a second. Then she smiled. "Smart." Maya narrowed her gaze. Something didn't sit right. She reached for her bag, pulling out a flash drive. "I also made a backup," she said casually. "Encrypted. It's useless without the password, though." Kendra raised an eyebrow. "You always were 5 steps ahead." 3 hours later, Maya returned to her office, and everything unraveled. The video, gone from the precinct server, gone from the phone, gone from the IA terminal. Even the witness image from Ms. Everett's old phone deleted. She stared at her screen, heart-pounding. Someone had wiped everything. She raced back to the conference room. Empty. The chair where Abrams had sat, now occupied by a younger officer typing quietly. "Where's the director?" Maya asked. The officer looked up. "Out for the rest of the week. Emergency leave." Maya's stomach dropped. Cover up. She called Kendra. "Don't answer." She texted. "Number," replied. She called again, straight to voicemail. That night, Maya drove to Kendra's apartment, lights off, curtains drawn, no car in the driveway. She rang the buzzer, waited. Nothing. Then, just as she turned to leave, a voice spoke from behind the slightly ajar door. "You should stop digging, Maya." Her blood ran cold. She pushed the door open. Inside the apartment looked ransacked, but not by burglars, by someone trying to make it look that way. Maya stepped inside slowly. Kendra, no response, but a single folder lay on the coffee table, unmarked. She picked it up, flipped it open. Photos, transcripts, Surveillance logs. Her name circled in red. Kendra's handwriting. Maya Rhodes, potential internal threat. Monitoring her since Elijah case reopened. As personal vendetta may leak to media. Maya's legs gave out. She dropped to the couch. It had all been a setup. Kendra wasn't her friend. She was the mole. The one leaking Maya's movements. The one who warned Blaine. The one who erased the evidence before Maya could file the report. All these years, every shared lunch, every coffee shop meeting, every time she thought she had a sister on the force, it had been watched, logged, reported, used against her. Maya sat in silence, tears running silently down her face, and then her phone buzzed. Unknown number, one message: "You should have kept your head down. Now we come for you." At that exact moment, Blaine Matthews walked into a dim basement lit by a single bulb. Two men stood waiting. One of them held a folder, another backup copy of Maya's compiled evidence, minus the missing flash drive. "She still has one copy left," the taller man said. Blaine's jaw tightened. "Then we find it. And if she doesn't hand it over..." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Meanwhile, Maya pulled a small fireproof box from her closet. Inside, the original flash drive, the encrypted copy with the real password. She stared at it for a long time, then looked at the photo of Elijah beside it. "I'm not done," she whispered. "Not even close." Her brother's voice was never silent. The first time Maya ever heard Elijah's voice recorded, he was 9, had borrowed her mom's old cassette recorder and narrated a whole fake crime scene, complete with different voices and dramatic pauses. She had laughed for days. Now, over a decade after his death, his voice came back to her through another recording. This time, it was no joke. It was proof. She pressed play again, barely breathing. "They threatened me. If I didn't back off, they'd pin something on me. They did it to that boy last year, Mahas, and now they're watching me too. But I won't stop. Not until people know what they've done." Elijah's voice, low, careful, terrified. 3 weeks before his death, the file had been stored deep in the encrypted drive. Maya found inside her brother's fireproof box, a place she hadn't opened in years. Not until Kendra's betrayal shattered everything. That audio meant one thing. Elijah had been digging into the same network Maya was about to expose. He knew, and someone had silenced him for it. Maya's hands shook as she saved the file to a burner device. This wasn't just about Blaine anymore. This was about Elijah, and now, she had his voice to speak for him. Maya didn't go to work the next day. She didn't call in sick. She didn't explain. Instead, she sat in the back of a dusty, independent podcast studio run by an ex-journalist named Sean Lively, a man who'd once been fired for investigating police misconduct. He owed Maya a favor. "I want you to run this anonymously," she told him. "Drop it at midnight. No credits, no edits, just raw." Sean raised an eyebrow. "You sure you want to go nuclear?" Maya slid the drive across the table. "Elijah died for this. I'm not afraid anymore." Meanwhile, across town, Blaine slammed his fist against a desk. "She what?" The younger officer hesitated. "We think she gave the files to someone outside, off-grid. She's not answering her phone, and her apartment's cold." Blaine turned to Kendra, who stood near the window, arms crossed. "You said you had tabs on her." Kendra flinched, but recovered quickly. She changed patterns, went dark. "She's not going to IA, not reporting through the system." Blaine leaned in, teeth clenched. "Then where is she going?" Maya was already in motion. By 10:30 p.m., she had mailed 3 physical copies of the audio, one to a local news outlet, one to a trusted civil rights lawyer in Atlanta, and one to Ms. Everett, Marcus's grandmother. She knew at least one would make it through. At 11:58 p.m., she stood on the rooftop of an abandoned building overlooking the city. She opened her phone, refreshed the podcast channel. 11:59 p.m. New episode. The cop, the boy, and the voice they tried to erase. Her heart, thud, DED. Then the countdown. 12 o'clock a.m. It was live. Across the city, a domino effect began. Phones buzzed. Headlines flashed. People clicked, then listened. The voice of Elijah Rhodes filled bedrooms, living rooms, car stereos. His testimony cut through the silence like a blade. The story spread like wildfire. A young black filmmaker, a crooked cop with a violent record, a system that had buried both the truth and the man, and a sister who refused to stay quiet by sunrise. Maya's name was on every social feed. Though she hadn't credited herself, word got out. A former cop close to internal affairs, a black woman, Elijah's sister. The system scrambled. Damage control began. Blaine's precinct went into internal review, and then, just as Maya hoped someone cracked, it wasn't Blaine. It was Officer Remy Delgado, the second cop who had shown up late to Marcus's arrest, the one who backed up Blaine's fake report. He walked into the local news station at 8:12 a.m. and asked to speak on record. "I have something to confess," he said. By noon, Maya sat at a diner, sipping coffee with trembling hands. She hadn't slept. She couldn't not. When she was waiting for the hammer to drop, then the door chimed. A shadow fell across her table. Kendra Maya's hand drifted toward her bag, where she had pepper spray and a pocket blade. But Kendra didn't sit. She stood, silent for a long moment. "You really did it," she said. "You let the whole damn city hear him." Maya didn't answer. Kendra looked down. For the first time she seemed hollow, almost haunted. "I didn't know they were going to kill Elijah," she whispered. "I was just told to monitor, to report back. They didn't tell me he'd." Maya's voice was cold steel. "You think that makes it better?" Kendra blinked away tears. "I tried to warn him. I swear, I told him to stop digging." Maya stared at her, then quietly said, "You warned the wrong side." Kendra nodded once, then turned and walked away. Maya didn't watch her go. She had no more space for betrayal. Only truth. Only justice. That night, Blaine sat in his apartment, alone, TV muted, phone buzzing non-stop. He didn't answer. He knew. It was over. The public knew. Delgado had flipped. The IA director had stepped down, and the real storm was still coming. Because Maya hadn't stopped at one podcast. She had a folder, names, photos, old reports, a blueprint of the whole network. Elijah had uncovered Blaine, poured a drink, but even that didn't numb it. He wasn't afraid of prison. He was afraid of her, because Maya Rhodes wasn't after revenge anymore. She was after reckoning. The reckoning. The courtroom was dead silent. As Maya walked in, every seat filled. Reporters packed along the back wall. Activists with Elijah's photo pinned to their shirts. Officers in uniform lined the far side of the gallery, some glaring, some ashamed. Blaine Matthews sat at the defense table, his expression a carved mask. But Maya wasn't looking at him. She was looking at the judge, at the jury, at the city. Justice, finally breathing again. This wasn't just Blaine's trial. It was Elijah's. It was Marcus's. It was hers. The prosecution opened with the audio. Maya had risked everything to release. Elijah's voice echoed through the courtroom speakers. "I won't stop. Not until people know what they've done." People wept openly. Jurors froze. Then came the video of Marcus's arrest, the violent slam, the planted drugs, the cruelty behind the badge. Blaine never flinched, but Maya watched his fists tighten, just enough to tell her he knew the walls were closing in. Kendra was called as a witness on day 2. Her voice trembled at first, but she answered every question. Admitted everything, the surveillance, the erasure of evidence, the betrayal. When asked why she flipped, she turned toward the gallery, toward Maya. "Because someone finally refused to stay quiet," she said, "and I realized silence wasn't keeping me safe. It was keeping me guilty." The judge called for order as murmurs spread. Maya didn't nod, didn't smile, but part of her, the part that still remembered friendship, felt the faintest flicker of something like closure. Then came Officer Remy Delgado. His testimony broke everything wide open. He detailed years of coerced reports, cover-ups, planted evidence. He confessed that Elijah had come to him weeks before his death. "Elijah told me he was going public," Remy said, his voice cracking. "He gave me names, said he had it all backed up. He said, ... if something happened to him, someone had to finish it." Maya's chest clenched. She hadn't known that part that Elijah had trusted. Someone. And Remy hadn't run from it this time. On the final day, Maya took the stand. She wasn't required to, but she needed to. Not for the court, for Elijah. "I was a cop," she began. "I wore the same badge Blaine Matthews did." She let the silence stretch, and for a long time, I thought I could fight the system from inside it. That if I worked hard, proved myself, followed every rule, justice would eventually come. Her voice didn't shake. She didn't cry. She had done that already. But justice isn't polite. It's not patient. Sometimes, you have to set the whole damn system on fire just to be seen. She looked at Blaine, who finally looked back. "This man killed my brother," she said. "Maybe not with a bullet, but with a lie. A lie wrapped in a badge, signed by silence." She stood. Her voice rose. "I'm not here for revenge. I'm here because he thought no one would care enough to fight back. And I did. And I won't stop." The courtroom exploded in applause before the judge banged his gavel for silence. But Maya had said what mattered. It was out. It was real, and nothing could bury it again. 2 days later, the verdict came. Guilty on all counts. Unlawful arrest, perjury, evidence tampering, conspiracy. And most damning, negligent homicide in the death of Elijah Rhodes, whose suicide had now been reclassified. Blaine was taken out in cuffs. Maya didn't celebrate. She just exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath for 6 years. The story went national. Not just the trial, the system, the secrets. More officers came forward. More cases reopened. Maya was offered interviews, book deals, even a documentary contract. She turned almost all of it down. Instead, she started a foundation in Elijah's name to help families of wrongfully accused victims and support independent investigations into law enforcement misconduct. She named it the Echo Project because Elijah's voice still echoed, louder than ever. 1 year later, she stood at a community memorial where they unveiled a mural. Marcus's face, Elijah's face, names of others they'd lost, not forgotten anymore. A little girl walked up, holding her mother's hand. "Are you the lady from the video?" she asked. Maya knelt, smiled. "I am." The girl looked at the mural, then back at Maya. "Did your brother really say all that stuff?" Maya touched the necklace she wore, Elijah's old pendant, now filled with ash and memory. "He did," she said, "and he made sure people listened." The girl nodded. "I want to be like that." Maya blinked back tears. "You already are." As the sun set over the city, Maya stood alone in front of the mural. A soft breeze brushed her face, and for the first time in years, she felt still, not healed, not yet, but whole and free. Final soul-hitting lesson. Sometimes the truth doesn't bring peace. Sometimes it breaks everything. But in the rubble, we find the people we were meant to become. And that's where real justice begins.